Hey everybody, this is Paul doing a, I don't know, post-mortem Democrats in disarray video, I guess if you want to call it. So, most of you may not know who I am, and if you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering why you're clicking on this video. Maybe it's got a catchy title. I don't know, I gotta come up with a title. Anyways, I decided to do this video because I think we need to explain this, right? Obviously, obviously this, right? Like, what's all this? What's this rightward shift? Like, where is this coming from? Despite this guy up here saying pretty crazy stuff, right? Like, what happened? All right. So, this is me on Twitter here, as you can see, a little Twitter handle. I do investments, I have dividend videos all over the place. And the reason I decided to do this video, because I think Democrats need kind of a instruction manual on how to deal with this and what makes people look at Trump and go, literally everything that's going on, but I still want to vote for this guy. Like he's like there's just one thing after another you can list about him in terms of character. That's just one of those things. So what's going on? All right, so two things, actually three things. So the first things that everybody went for is um, Waltz wasn't a good candidate, this or that. I mean, Waltz had really high approval ratings. He had higher approval ratings than pretty much everybody else. So Waltz wasn't the problem. Was Kamala the problem? No, Kamala wasn't the problem. I'll tell you what the problem was in a second. She's a woman. That probably played into some people. There's some people down here that my wife talks to that was one of the things that they pointed out. Um, but then you have to explain to me. So here's Michigan. You know, here's Michigan, or if CNN would bother to show it correctly. But here's Michigan going for Donald Trump by that many votes, but their governor's a woman, their secretary of state's a woman. It's a like whole female little coalition up here. Big Gretch, who I actually won it, but she's a woman. Jill Stein's a woman. She's a spoiler candidate, obviously, as you can tell. Like all these third-party people are spoiler candidates, but also Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, right next door, she won. Okay, now is she a white woman? No. Is she a black woman? Yeah. Could that have played a part in it? Probably. At least in some parts of the South, maybe in Georgia, maybe. It's hard to measure racism these days. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are going to jump to conclusions about what's going on there. But I don't want Democrats to take the wrong message from this because Barack Obama was black and he won all this little middle section right here. He won that. He won this. He won over here. Now, did he win during a like a great financial recession? Yeah. So that's probably why some of these things got taken off the board. But he still won by a lot. Um, I mean, Democrats are going to have to figure out how to deal with that issue. We do have a very diverse party, so they're going to expect a diverse candidate. Um, I'm going to go into more the economic reason why I think a lot of voters shifted, and I'm going to make it very simple. Prior, I used to do dividend videos all the time, and the reason why I stopped doing them is because this thing right here that you call the market is completely disconnected from this thing that we call the economy. I like to use, where's my notepad? Do I have a notepad? I have a notepad somewhere around here. All right, notepad. I like to use this little thing right here. There. The markets do not equal the economy. So, while this thing, so if we go out to 5 years, right? So, if you go by just the markets and how people's 401ks are doing, we were at pretty much when COVID started, when Biden took office, right there. So, or pretty much right in this little area, right about there, give or take a little. So the market was at pretty much 37.14, and now it's at 59.20 That's almost a doubling of the market. Almost. So economy should be great, right? Everybody should be feeling great about the economy. But if you look at the at the exit poll surveys, 35% of the people said to like them that, economy is my biggest concern. Economy is my biggest concern. And now here is where Wall Street and Main Street diverge. If you listen to economists, and I don't have the graph specifically that I can pull up, but if you listen to economists and somebody says, hey, my wages haven't kept up with inflation, well, they will pull up a graph of wage inflation and it will be series timelines and all this stuff. And it will say, hey, no, you're right, your wages have actually kept up. But it doesn't feel like it. When you go to the grocery store, you know, everybody was pointing out the price of beef, the price of chicken, that kind of stuff, and those prices are flying all around, moving from day to day, depending on if there's like bird flu or if like that type of stuff. So the problem is, and I think Democrats need to understand this. I don't think this election was. I kind of thought it might have been winnable because some of the polls were showing it was close, and I thought maybe independents might go. I don't think this election was winnable, and I'll tell you exactly why. If you kind of scroll around here, it was on here somewhere, but let's say Tory party defeat. Uh, Suffered its worst ever defeat. Look at the date on this. 2024. Now, I had made a prediction in 2022 when inflation first took off, right in this area, right around here, after all the stimulus checks and all the PPP loans and everything, and all the craziness was fed into the economy. It was global inflation. Supply chains were destroyed all over the world. Everything was shut down. Everybody shut down at once. China stayed shut down way longer than everybody else. So when the inflation started to take off right here and then to here and then all the way up to here, and this is where it actually bottomed. Notice where the market bottomed. I had made the prediction that the election rate here in 2022 is when Democrats would pay the price. I thought that that was when Democrats would pay the price, but they kept the Senate, obviously kept the presidency because there wasn't a presidential election, and also, but they lost a House, but barely lost a House. So everybody at the time was thinking, well, that's the price they're going to pay for inflation. Because if the Democrats were going to pay for the price for inflation, it would have been paid for when it was actually going up. And it was going up. If you look at how like the lagged indicators and all this stupidity goes, I hate the lagged indicators that they use, but the Federal Reserve should have been raising rates back around here. Because rent inflation, I believe the whole time was higher than what it really was. If you look at real-time rent indicators, it showed that rent went up by, say, about 13%. If you look at what the OER says, which is what they use, it only went up by, say, like 9% or something like that. People who were actually renting at the time were taking it on the chin. And these are people who rent. So, which makes up about 35% of the country. The other 65% are on like fixed mortgages, the kind of stuff. But when the food inflation and the Russian invasion and all that craziness happened and oil took off towards $100 a barrel, that was all through here. And that's when I thought Democrats were going to pay the price. What I failed to understand at the time, and I think everybody, and I mean everybody, Germany, France, United Kingdom, everybody failed to understand at the time because everybody holds their elections kind of around each other. The Tory didn't take that big of a hit at that time, even though the inflation worldwide had been taking off. What happened during this period of time is the central banks, and then you'll notice when the market actually bottoms is when the central banks, or at least our central bank, was done raising rates. They raised rates here, then they raised rates here, then they raised rates here, but inflation kept going up, so they raised rates again, and guess what the market kept doing? And then we thought inflation had kind of bottomed out and everybody was good, and we started going up again, and then we got this surprise one in July or whatever, it was like June or July, and they had to raise rates again. They raised it by another 50, and then boom. So in a 10-month period, they raised rates by over 550 basis points. So what that means for a normal person who's listening to this is if your credit card rate, and most everybody has flexible credit card rates, if your credit card rate was at 19%, all of a sudden it was 23%. And if you weren't paying attention, all of a sudden your credit card bill, if you have say $9,000 on a card, went from say, I probably went from like say 270 up to 300. You didn't even notice it. Most people didn't even notice it. But here's where you run into the real problem. And here's where the real problem is right now. They kept the rates high all the way to pretty much right there. And they did after employment started to kind of show. And the theory was, and this is what I'm going to tell Democrats, the way that the Federal Reserve looked at it is they looked at it as that wages were out of control. They were higher than whatever, 2% or whatever. And we're talking like some old school 1980s Milton Friedman type stuff that we're talking about right now and how they think about how they control inflation. They thought wages were too high, and if you listen to Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, they said wages were not in line with market expectations or whatever words they use. It means normal people's wages were too high in this period right here. So they kept rates high, and then also what happened is during this period of time, from right about there to right about here, as they kept rates high, unemployment went from say 3.4% all the way up to 4.3%. And hours worked went down too. And this is why Democrats just lost this election. So, and it's one of the major reasons is that unemployment went up, but also there's a reason I stopped making dividend videos. It's because the market had become so disconnected from the actual economy. It just stopped making sense to me. It's pointless. The market's going to go up no matter what. So what I was looking at is basically the manufacturing PMIs, the things that, kind of like tell you how manufacturing's going. They were in the tank for the last 2 years. Manufacturing PMIs have been in the tank for 2 years. Home builders right here, this is right here. Look, this is home building for the last 2 years, or actually 2 or 3 years, and it's actually about to get worse, especially if Trump does his tariffs. This is rent inflation. Look how long rent inflation took to come down. As you can see, and this is the delayed stuff, what I was telling you about, rent inflation took forever to come down. According to the actual official stats, it still hasn't come down. This is the Zillow family rent thing. So you didn't start to see any kind of rent relief until January of this year. Also, there's just other stats in here that just kind of point this out. As you can kind of get a general idea, this is CPI, as you can kind of get a general idea. This is CPI from, I believe, this might be one of the more, or until April. You can see, it started to go up in 2021. The Federal Reserve should have raised rates right here. See this right here? As soon as this happened, that right there, that's when the Federal Reserve should have raised rates. They were buying mortgage bonds and keeping rates low as junk, like all the way up until March. They were buying mortgage bonds all the way up until March of 2022. They didn't raise rates until somewhere, I think January, somewhere in here. And then that's when the market started to tank. But look how entrenched this inflation is by the time it happens. I don't think we get a CHIPS Act if they had started to raise rates right here. I don't think we do. I mean, I think we still get infrastructure, but I don't think we get a CHIPS Act. I don't think we get, maybe we don't even get an inflation. I don't think the Inflation Reduction Act is nearly as big as it is. I don't think we get a CHIPS Act, or maybe it's much more pared down, because by this point, like, this is entrenched. But as you can see, according to the official stats, but if you show this to somebody who has food costs that have gone up, your only alternative, like, you're never going to have a politician say, oh, just buy the generic stuff. That's the stuff that's cheap. So what happened was is they kept rates really, really high, and I was advocating in January of 2024, and everybody here in December of 2023 thought they were going to cut rates here in January of 2024. And we were supposed to have 6 cuts this year. That's actually what the market had priced in 2023. The market had priced in 6 cuts in 2024. We didn't get one until September, right before the election. It is beyond pointless. That cut that they just did hasn't even fed into the economy yet. Nobody's bought a house. Like maybe a few people have bought a house based on that cut, but then rates went immediately back up as Trump's chances went back up. This is what the market has been doing. It's like as Trump's chances go up, the market has been going up a little, but also rates have been going up. And as the chances go down, the rates went back down. It's been playing this little game. So that rate cut that they did was completely pointless. It got priced out immediately. So you can kind of get the general idea. Is like when they did not do cuts in January 2024, that was in. That was the end of it. What I think Democrats need to understand is I don't think there is a chance at all they could have won this election. And the reason why, and this should have been the shot across the bow, is this is when the hammer hit. Because the Bank of England raised their rates too, and they kept them high. But people felt it more over there because they don't do 30-year bonds or they don't do 30-year mortgages like we do. People in Germany felt it hard. Here's Olaf Scholz, barely, and he ran against like far right type stuff, but barely. Like his party got wrecked. Um, like if we go to Macron, and this is in France, obviously. This is France. Centrist Party suffers historic defeat. Look at the date, July 1st, 2024. The center collapses in France. That's the center. Like leaving Macron maroon. He ended up kind of keeping power because he was able to form a coalition because yet again, far right in Europe means something very different than it means here, actually. Like Le Pen almost took power there. So UK's Conservative Party worst ever defeat, July 6th. Macron, center collapses, worst ever historic defeat. Democrats did not see this coming. And the reason they didn't see this coming is because, like I said, I had made this mistake too, is that we had paid the price for inflation in 2022. Well, what I forgot, and I think a lot of Democrats forgot, and maybe if Harris had had more time, that kind of goes back to should Biden have dropped out before the primary? Well, if he had dropped out before the primary, it would have been we would have had a primary probably with Gretchen Whitmer, maybe with Sean, Shapiro in there. Everybody would have fought with each other, but then they still only have 100 days to go into these states and figure out what people are mad about. And I don't think it was some remarkable Republican ground game that won them. And I will give one last example as to why I thought we were going to probably lose the whole time. And, I make money just on the side. I got a little veterans thing going on. And I'm in Louisiana, so, a little caveat here. But I do shopping orders for grocery stores for DoorDash. And what would happen is normally you're sitting in line and you get stuck behind somebody. You would hear, well, especially, so what happens is during the big inflation, like back around here, the people who were driving at the time were much, much older. So when inflation was really, really biting, especially in here and this first little part over here, when inflation was really hitting people, older people on fixed incomes were the ones who were actually doing DoorDash. Like people that were over 70 were delivering food for DoorDash. And then it kind of went back to what I would normally see, just in my area, like a Hispanic makeup, people that don't speak too good of English, that kind of stuff. And like guys my age, 40, that kind of stuff, who just kind of do the stuff on the side hustle. But what I would see is when I was doing shopping orders and you're checking out, you can see people looking at the price that pops up on the register and going, oh my God, oh, goddamn Biden, blah, 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 blaming Biden. Just different things that were going on and just blaming Biden. Like just, oh, well, the food price is this. And those are things that you see every 2 weeks. And I'm not talking about like people ordering DoorDash and being like, hey, my DoorDash price is expensive. I'm talking about people that were just shopping for food. And one thing that Americans do not like is having to downgrade their food choices. They hate it. And if there's one thing that will get you destroyed in an election, it is that. So what I would say to Democrats is, and this is what I told my wife at the time, or what I told my wife is when somebody's talking about Trump or whatever, and they say, "Yeah, man, Trump is going to do this, Trump is going to do that." First of all, look at this. Housing just became more expensive because he's president. Just flat out just became more expensive. Also, look at him and go, I hope his policies work out. I can't wait to see what his policies are because there are no policies. Even he never really detailed a plan. And when he starts doing tariffs, just be like, how's that working out for you? I'll tell you right now, like the market does not believe Trump is going to do the tariffs that he's going to say he's doing. If the market believed he was going to do the tariffs he was going to say, this would not be with the market today. They think that he's going to appoint some centrist to be in charge of his economic policy, and that guy is going to be the one who, talks him out of like doing tariffs and stuff like that. The market is right now is pricing in higher spending from Republicans if they win the House kind of stuff, like extending the tax cuts that are completely unpaid for. That were supposed to expire to pay for the prior tax cuts, but they're going to extend them, which is going to add. But as you see, look at if you just look at this headline right here, Brits brace for higher mortgage payments despite Bank of England seeing cutting rates. This is why they got destroyed. It's not just Americans that are paying the price. Like it's not just Americans. This isn't America. This is Bank of England. But tell me if this doesn't look familiar. That should look familiar to every single person who's complaining about housing prices. This is an account I recommend you follow. It's Lance Lambert. He pretty much gives you the gist of like he can answer any mortgage question you have, but he gives you the information about rates pretty much every day. And look, average 30-year mortgage just went up. So it's not just it's the same way the inflation story was a worldwide phenomenon. You're looking at the election story being a worldwide phenomenon also. So you get somebody like Trump who gets 291. Look like they called this maybe, I don't know, but yeah, that's how you kind of get this. That's how you get what you're looking at right here. This doesn't mean that America has shifted to the right and everybody's a right winger now. What's going to happen is Trump is going to go in and Trump is going to act like Trump. We saw it for 4 straight years. He's not going to all of a sudden become presidential. We've seen this before. So, what I would recommend to Democrats is have a plan in place that makes housing the platform for 2028. Because I have a feeling we're going to need it. Um, I figure Trump gets about a good 2 years to do as much damage as possible. Maybe, I don't know, like financial damage as possible or whatever damage, whatever crazy bill that they want to do, like, national abortion ban kind of stuff. Um, I have a feeling that he does that kind of thing, and then you're going to get a very big backlash in 2026. The exact same way in 2018 there was a big backlash. This guy has no clue how to moderate himself. There is no moderation with this. There's no moderation happening here. So get ready for 2020 or 2028 after he's put Stephen Miller or whatever in charge of immigration and they start raiding people. Um, the way I'll take that immigration stuff seriously is if it's actually having an effect on the economy. Is if you want to know, drive out to your local Home Depot, and if you still see 30 guys sitting out there not worried about immigration showing up to collect them, then you'll know his entire platform is a complete joke and they're not worried about anything. If you see that parking lot empty, that's a lot of labor that contractors cannot get. And the funny part is the Trump Republicans are going to be the first one to notice that they're going because Trump Republicans are the ones picking them up out front. They're complete hypocrites on this issue. They want to deport them, but they also want the cheap labor. Because if a Hispanic guy gets hurt on the job, well, whatever, he just leaves. His buddies throw him in the back of a truck, and you never hear from the guy again. And you can also pay him way less, so you can bid the jobs down. So what I think Democrats need to do is when they start talking about passing some kind of like immigration bill, Help Republicans pass it. That same thing that Biden was about to sign, see if you can dare Trump to sign it. I guarantee Trump signs the exact same bill that he said was bad not even 6 months ago. Take that off the table for 2028 and take that off the table for 2030 because Democrats are getting beat over the head with it. Or for 2026, take that off the table completely. Take it off the table. They want to play this game where, we shut down the border and all this stuff. Okay, have fun. Who's going to pick your food? Like, if you want to do this stuff, look, you can see the consequences of it. If I was a Democrat and I was preparing financially, I just did a few things where I re-rated, I changed a few things. Like anything that's exposed to China like this, I kind of backed it off. I raised my cash position, obviously. As you can tell, I'm well positioned to probably ride out a Trump presidency. Like, my house is paid off. Like, I got a lot of things going for me. If I was you, I'd probably, if he's serious about these tariffs, I would kind of watch out and see where it shows up. I think everything in Walmart is going to become more expensive overnight. Unless he starts handing out his magical exemptions, which is what he did last time. Like whoever donates to him gets a magical exemption. It's pay for play kind of stuff, like Ivanka's products in China. But when the counter tariffs start, that's when it's really going to hit. So that's where we're at. Get ready for 2026 to capitalize on whatever insanity that he's about to unleash on the country because he's not going to worry about inflation. Inflation magically got solved overnight. Inflation is no longer a problem to this guy anymore. This guy is not going to pass a single policy to deal with inflation. There's not going to be a damn policy that gets passed. He'll say he's passing a policy, but it has nothing to do with inflation. It's about making it cheaper for them to give you unregulated meat or something. So I think Democrats need to be ready. Once inflation is off the board as like an issue that they can run on, and they barely ran on it, and look what they did. They barely ran on inflation. This guy barely talked about inflation at his stuff, and look what they still were able to accomplish. But I think once immigration and once inflation are off the table, and people see the consequences of this stuff, it's going to be it's going to be a very bad wake up call to a lot of people. Because I have a feeling this guy's policies are going to hurt a lot of people, and they don't even remotely understand how. I don't think his voters have any clue what a tariff is. I don't think they have the first clue. I don't think Harris ran more on like abortion and that kind of stuff when probably she should have been like there should have been an actual policy on like how will she increase fixed supply chains, that kind of thing, stuff that Biden kind of left her. I don't know, but I think this was baked in, to be honest with you, just looking around the world. So don't feel too bad. Democrats don't all of a sudden have to become Republicans overnight. I think Democrats can stay Democrats, and then Republicans are going to be the one that are going to be like, we have to defend these insane policies yet again. So that's my 2 cents on where I think things should go, that kind of thing, and why things turned out the way that they did. It's just nothing y'all can do. So let me know what y'all, leave a comment in the comment section. I'm sure there's a lot of people that think, the section and stuff played out more, but, just going from an economics perspective, this was too much of a shift towards a guy who's that flawed to be like, that's the sole reason. So, let me know what you think. Have a nice day.